Okay, guys, so we've learned several formulas so far. We've learned how to find the nth term of an arithmetic sequence. We've learned how to find the sum of the first n terms of an arithmetic sequence. Yesterday we talked about geometric sequences. Geometrics, we talked about this formula, that's to find the nth term. And now we have a new one right here. And this is to find the sum of the first n terms of a geometric series. A series means that we have a pattern of numbers and we're going to find the sum of them. So this formula says that the sum of the first n terms is going to be a sub 1 times 1 minus r to the n over 1 minus r. So let's look at this first example here. You'll have to write this in. Find the sum of the first 7 terms for this pattern. 1, 2, 4, 8, etc. So if we want to do this, the first thing we want to do is we have to know what a sub 1 is and we have to know what r is to use this formula. So I can see what a sub 1 is. A sub 1 is just going to be 1. R is going to be the ratio. So to find the ratio, we just have to take the second term divided by the first, or the third term divided by the second, or even this term divided by the fourth divided by the third. So r, of course, is going to be 2. So using this formula then, the sum of the first 7 terms is going to be a sub 1, which is 1, times 1 minus r, which is 2, to the n power, which is 7, all over 1 minus 2. What do I do first here? Do I do 1 minus 2 first or 2 to the 7th first? 2 to the 7th. So this is going to be 1 minus 2 to the 7th, which is 128, over 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. So when I do this, I'm going to get negative 127 over negative 1, which is 127. So that's not too difficult to use that formula. Now, on something that easy, I may not even want to use a formula, because look what I can do. If I have 7 terms, I do 1 plus 2, there's 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms, 5 terms, 6 terms, 7 terms. Okay? I mean, why even bother with a formula if it's that simple? Okay? But of course, they're not all going to be that simple. So let's come over here now. And you should have an open space here on page 230. And we'll call this question 11.5. I want to do this one before number 12. So we're going to find the sum. Remember, this sigma symbol means the sum of all the numbers as we fill in from 0 to 5. And the function is 2 times negative 1/3 to the k. Now, to do a problem like this, we could just type it into our calculator as is. But I want you to practice using the formula a little bit, so you can kind of switch back and forth. If you have a problem like this, you can just type it in as a summation. Let's just practice doing that, just to make sure everybody knows how. If you have one of the newer calculators, you can just go under Math, go up to Summation. I don't like to try to find the k, so I just use x's. And that's the way I would have to put that in. Look at the parentheses that were needed. I wanted to do negative 1 over 3. That whole thing needs to go to the x power. So I have to make sure I put that fraction in parentheses. When I hit enter, I get this. I'm going to math frac that. And 364 over 243. But suppose I told you you had to do this and you aren't allowed to use a graphing calculator, that you have to use a non-graphing that does not have this sigma notation on it. Well, here's what I would have to do. I'm going to plug in 0 for k. So what's anything to the 0 power? Times 2 is 2. Plus, now I'm going to plug in 1. Negative 1/3 to the first is negative 1/3 times 2 is negative 2/3. Plus, now I'm going to plug in 2. That would be positive 2/9. And then I would just continue. So this is when k equals 0. This is when k is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many terms would I end up having? 6 terms, right? So n would actually be 6 in this case. So this is kind of tedious trying to find all of these terms. So instead I'm going to use that new formula we've got. So it's going to be really the sum of the first 6 terms. And people get confused because they're like, yeah, but that's a 5 there. But we have the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's really 6 terms that we're using as we go from 0 to 5. So the formula is a sub 1, which is 2, times 1 minus, what's the r value? When I do negative 2/3 divided by 2, that's how I find r. Negative 2/3, my second term divided by my first term. So negative 2/3 times 1/2, what is that? Negative 1/3. So negative 1/3 is my r value, so I have to do 1 minus negative 1/3 to the n all over 1 minus r. So using this formula then, I'm going to have 2, and then I have to do negative 1/3 to the 6th. That's going to be negative 1 to the 6th is positive 1. I'm going to do 3 to the 6th. That's 729. And then on the bottom, I've got 1 minus negative 1/3. What's that going to be? It's 4/3, guys. It's 1 plus 1/3 is 4/3. Now, simplifying this, I'm going to come up here where I have a little more room. I have to do 2 times 1 minus 1 over 729 all over 4/3. What I can do with this is I can multiply through by my common denominator, which is 729. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 729. So when I do this, multiplying this out, 1 times that is 729 minus 1. 729 divided by 3 times 4 is 972. So I get 972 on the bottom. I know this is difficult, but so we're going to subtract these and we get 728 over 972. Now watch though, if I put this in, 728 divided by 972, I get this. I'm going to math frac it. Oh no. Oh, times 2, right? Did I do times 2 yet? No, I didn't, did I? I was like, that's not going to work. 728 times 2 divided by 972. We get this answer. We math frac that, and it should be equal to the other thing, and it is. 364 over 273. So, do you see why we kind of have an appreciation now for having this summation on our calculator? That's pretty tedious to go through that. But we do get the same answer. All right. So, the general rule I want you to use is if this is less than 5, if you're going to have 5 or fewer terms, I want you to try to use this formula. So I want you to use this formula if you have n equals 5 or less. But if n equals 6 or more, then just use the sigma on your calculator, on your homework. So let's look at our last one here in our student journal. We look at our n value. What are we going to do? Am I going to make you use a formula on something like that? No, because our n is going to be more than that. So we're just going to type it in. In fact, though, if we were using the formula, would this be 10 or 11 terms? It'd be 11 terms, wouldn't it? All right, so now I go back to my math. Just go to summation. Just typing this in. Okay, so we get it all typed in. Just double check, make sure it's right. We wanted to do the 3/2 to the x minus 1 first, then times 3, and it's going to be plugging in the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10. That would take us a long time to do by hand, but with this we can just get that answer, math bracket, and there we go. Okay, makes sense? All right, so you guys have the problems to do on your assignment sheet, plus I want you to add on these other 3. Number 49 is actually wrong in the back of the book, so don't panic if you look in the back on 49 and you see a different answer. Everything else, though, in the back should be correct, those that you can check. All right?